Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and today we are looking at the True. These are Catalyst 9X, but it doesn't really say anywhere on here. Pro Stock gloves. These are obviously for Ivan Barbashev when they were with the Vegas Golden Knights, and they have a Warrior Flex cuff on there. So we're going to take a look at these and talk about how these are really actually pretty awesome. This is obviously a Pro Stock glove. It's not a retail glove, but this is available at Just Hockey. They have a bunch of True Pro Stock gloves on there right now for sale. So click that link in the description or in the comments. But I wanted to take a look at these because they're an interesting spec and I want to see how they were. So I asked them to send it to me so I could make this video and just take a look at them. I'm sending the gloves back once I'm done with them, unfortunately, and I'll get to that at the end of why I say unfortunately. But we're going to take a look at this and see how this glove is. We're also going to do the hand fit tests for these gloves specifically. They have other models. Obviously, I can't directly talk about the other models because they all have different specs. Looking at this glove, this is obviously the Catalyst line, and it is kind of the future line of these XC9s. I bought this glove. It's a Chikrin Pro return. As you can see, it was never used. I bought these gloves also from actually Just Hockey a long time ago. I've never used them because honestly, they're not a great glove. They have way too many breaks in them, which is something odd that you would rarely hear me say, but I did a full video on these and how it's too complicated and the glove just doesn't really fit right. The fingers always stay kind of curled and the finger breaks never really work the way I wanted them to, and it wasn't a great glove. There's some good specs and features on there, but the glove itself wasn't that great. This is a huge improvement. True has really simplified a lot of the designs. You can see how many little pieces were in here, and this one is more simplified. This is still really busy and they don't need to go to that length of it, but it's a lot better than what it once was. So they did a really solid job with that. The backhand pad and everything you can't really see, but there's that 9X design, and like that, this piece doesn't really need to be there either. So there is still a little bit of kind of overkill on these. So since I just mentioned the backhand, it has this dual break shot blocker back there, which is kind of cool, and it is connected with a piece of elastic in here that kind of pulls it together. You can see that at the bottom as well underneath there when you're kind of taking a look. The idea behind this dual break is the glove still breaks a little bit more than if it was just a single shot blocker, but you get the benefits of a shot blocker on there. Really, for a shot blocker, if you just have an extra piece on top of all of them, it would act basically the same, but that's a lot of work, and this is a nice compromise of what they did with it because this is going to be very protective, but it also breaks a bit more. With that said, because the shot blocker is there, you can see that cuff can't actually roll up the actual backhand like this one does. You can see how this one rolls up that backhand padding. On here, it doesn't actually go up anywhere because it kind of gets stuck on that shot blocker. So if this was really pulled back, it would really allow that cuff to kind of float over more and you could stretch back into here more, but you can't because of that shot blocker, but it isn't a big deal and not a huge problem. I talked about kind of the sides and how that's still busy. It is, but it is still a lot better and it works with your hand. It feels pretty comfortable. The thumb is that kind of three-piece thumb design, but it doesn't move all that much. You can see it doesn't really move that much. When you pull it, it really does, and it reminds me of those Bauer three-piece ones there, and it doesn't have a ton of hyperextension protection in there, to be honest. You can feel it kind of going in there, but it should go higher if that's the case. But it has that flex, and honestly, when you're moving, it doesn't really move all that much, but it's not an issue. And when we're on here, you can see dexterity on this is pretty good, though. It does have three-piece index, middle, and ring finger, two-piece pinky finger, and you can close it totally fine and it's easy to do. And the rest of the glove, like flexibility and everything, closes really well. Three-piece fingers work well for padding because it does limit the gaps that are in here as well as allowing it to curl and everything pretty well. So it's a good design there all throughout. Continuing on to the fingers, the foam package is ridiculous. So it's an extremely dense foam. You can see I can barely squeeze it in there with a slightly less dense foam on top and then a plastic insert on top. So I'm not sure if this is a three-piece dense foam and then the plastic insert, or if this is two. It feels like two, a very dense and then a softer one and then a harder one. So unreal foam package on here. On the fingers, the backhand on here feels like it's a lot less dense. You can really kind of push that in and it feels a lot closer to a retail glove, but you do have that shot blocker on top, so it's not necessarily totally needed. And then over here, these are very dense as well. So it does definitely seem like they softened up behind the shot blocker just because you have that extra layer rather than building out the whole foam package there. On the side pieces, you have a pretty thick foam piece right here, but there isn't a plastic insert. It really just does feel like it's a molded foam all the way through. Not a huge deal because that is still a pretty solid piece of foam in there, so it will do pretty well. Plastic would make it a little bit better, but nothing major. Same with over here, no plastic inserts, but it is nice how it is a three-piece design. So when you kind of close your finger around a stick, it's going to be there. Same with over there, it's giving you pretty good coverage. Outer piece right here does have a plastic insert, unlike these pieces right here, and then has a thicker foam piece next to it, so pretty solid. Continuing on the fingers, the design of this is a stretch gusset, which is really nice because you can see it flexes out like this, and it allows it to be very comfortable and kind of flexible while having Nash fingertips. And the one thing about these is you can see how short these are. Normally you'd expect this to kind of go a little longer. I find when they're that short, the rest of the finger gusset like this kind of stretches a bit, so your fingers can come out a bit more than maybe you would like. So if it did have that Nash kind of going right down here, maybe it would be a bit better, but this is a very good spec overall. And when I close my hands on these, there's not a ton of space on there. It's doing a decent job. You can see how like when you kind of push it in, it does flex out more because of down here. So it would be nicer to have a bit more of that Nash coming a little bit further back, just so it doesn't flex out all that much. The palm is a very, very nice and soft, like gray micro Nash. It is an absolutely fantastic material. It is so soft. It might be AX suede. It feels really good to the touch, and it feels very nice. And looking on the inside, it's harder to see because it's flex cuff. It does just feel like kind of an AX suede, but it's a very well done AX suede, and it's a very nice and comfortable material. So a huge fan of that. I've had people ask me over and over again of what socks I always recommend, and I've been using Cutshield for a while now. I have multiple stuff from them. So Cutshield is a company out of Canada that makes cut resistant socks, and these are their Pro Air 6, which means it's an ANSI level 6 for cut resistance on here. Full review of it up there so you can check it out. But I now have a coupon code with Cutshield, so if you want to support the channel, you can check out the link in the description to Cutshield, buy some socks, which I think are honestly one of the better socks on the market. I absolutely love them. They're pretty thin and they are cut resistant, and they're not too hot either. Use my coupon code, you get 25% off, and it helps support the channel. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel and you don't want to buy anything hockey related, you can check out the links in the description to buy me a coffee. Anything that goes through any of the links always comes back into my channel so I can make more content and do more videos. And since we are on to the palm, we'll do the test with our grip Bower stick right here, and it does have a double layer on the palm piece itself. So right here you can see it has this layer over the connecting piece back here and the thumb, so it does kind of have a double layer and on the thumb as well, but single layer everywhere else. And honestly, it's pretty thin, so it's not like a real huge massive double layer. It's almost like a seam cover double layer. Going like this, you can slightly feel the bumps on it though, but that double layer does kind of minimize that a bit. But on the fingertips, you can definitely feel the texture through it. So the fingertips feel pretty solid on there. The thumb, you can barely feel it because it does have that double layer, and on the palm it's barely there as well. But it's not bad, but it's not the thinnest palm ever, and so that isn't really transferring through all that much. The fingers is definitely solid, but the palm, it's not there. But it's not a digital palm, so it should have a bit more durability on that sense. Now for the grip though, it is pretty solid. It's gripping pretty well on there, and I really kind of have to loosen my hand to allow it to go up and down. So you do get pretty good grip overall on it, and I would prefer maybe a little bit more palm kind of feel for that extra texture in there, but that's kind of a nitpick, and this palm is very soft and very solid, and I'm a very, very big fan of it. Going on to this cuff, it is a pretty solid foam, and it's like you can kind of squish it here, but it does have either a plastic insert or a denser foam insert behind it. I think it's just a denser foam, and it is pretty solid right in the middle. And the way that this kind of cuff works, you can see how it kind of opens up like that. But even when you punch down like this, it never goes into your actual like wrist. It never hits your wrist. It will always hit this piece. And when you're like this, it always hits that piece. So it goes through here and then here. And this flex cuff is basically straight out of a Warrior QRL, to be totally honest, or QRE. All that design and everything looks identical to it, including the undercuff, including the spandex on the inside. So obviously this is a player spec glove, and this is what the player wanted. Very interesting. They also have a 12K version that I haven't gotten my hands on for a Pro Sock one yet, but that is also there, so I'm interested. Hopefully I can check that out in the future. But to note on this, the foams in here are pretty solid, and it has a plastic insert on all of these pieces. So this isn't just like a wimpy kind of flex cuff that Bauer has been doing, where hitting this is not really going to do a lot for you because it's just a really weak foam, and on their new one it's curved. This does have padding through it, but honestly, it still kind of hurts. And the reason it kind of hurts is on the backhand, it feels like you can feel that plastic going straight into your actual wrist itself. So it feels like there's a foam, and then underneath it almost feels like there's a plastic kind of at the very bottom. I wish there was one more layer in there, but having it like this works really well. But if you get it like this, you're still going to feel it. It's not going to be nice, but it's going to be a lot better than if nothing was there. And you can see how great that flex cuff is though. This is that Warrior QRL design. Works really well with the cuff all the way through, as you can see. And this is a pretty famous glove now, and like Warrior brought back the flex cuffs for this, and it has been pretty fantastic. They're kind of going away with it a bit, but this is a pro stock glove with that option, and it's very nice. Bauer has also kind of copied this cuff design for some players, so interesting that it's on this true one as well, and it's an excellent spec glove, and it feels pretty solid. You do also in the backhand have a liner in here too, so you can see it right here. So sometimes when you have flex cuffs, you can't pull the liners out, but the actual backhand of this feels pretty like standard for the 9X gloves. And this piece kind of just feels like sewn into that inner cuff area. So interesting how they do that. It really does float, as you can see, pretty solidly, and overall is a pretty nice glove. Actually, it's an excellent glove. It feels fantastic. So overall, we're going to do a 3D hand test. So putting the 3D palms in here, this is that orange one, which ends up being the 15-inch palm. And this one is that red and yellow one, which ends up being the 14-inch palm. So the orange one's in the right. And we put the fingers, and the fingers are kind of just coming to the ends right there. But they're not blowing by at all. And honestly, this is like the right fit glove for this hand. When we look at the 14, you can see you can push inwards and the fingers don't come to the ends. And this one especially, you can see you have all that space for it. So these are labeled as a 14, but really it does feel like it's almost like that CCM Pro Stock 14, where this one kind of feels like a 14.5 inch. Feels kind of similar to these, which were a 14, but my fingers like were just touching the ends on there, not really blowing by it, just especially when you wear it because it just fits kind of looser. You can see my fingers aren't going right to the end here, but on retail, like CCM gloves 14s, I blow past it, same with Bauer. So these are definitely like about a 14.5 on here, and I would definitely recommend if you were looking for a type 14, this is probably not what you're looking for because there's a 15-inch kind of palm, and it's right at the end right there. So probably going to look for something a little smaller and tighter if you're a normal 14-inch glove. So for actual like glove fit itself, these are supposed to be their anatomical glove. They're obviously not the 4 rolls, but honestly, they're a little bit loose. Now these are kind of fitting a bit bigger, like I mentioned, than a normal 14, but they're not super tight or anything in here. And if I'm looking for an anatomical glove, I would probably like some more backhand padding in here, like just another insert, just to give it a bit tighter of a feel. It's not bad. The fingers are like, they're kind of in the middle there. They're not super snug. They're just kind of like, they're not super loose either. Same with the backhand here. You can kind of feel this part and this part on my hand, and it's kind of feels like the part that's really holding the glove in place. The wrist obviously is a bit tighter because it has that flex cuff, but everything up here is pretty loose. It's really just right here and right here that feels like it's snug on my hand. Kind of same with this one. It's kind of right there and right there, and they do come off pretty easily for a more anatomical fitting glove. So not the tightest thing there. So that's about it for this video on these true Catalyst Pro Stock gloves. Just Hockey has a bunch of these Catalyst gloves on their website. They're on sale right now. I'm not going to say the price on it because I don't know if the price are going to change or whatever. But go check them out. Link in the description, link in the comments. I don't get a kickback from them, but it's a fantastic deal. And the spec on these is really good. So I definitely recommend people take a look at these because I know a lot of people love CCM Pro Stocks, which I do too. And we have a couple of videos coming in the near future of some CCM Pro Stocks. But this glove itself is a fantastic spec glove. Feels really nice on your hands. And everything on here is really good. So I'm really impressed by these, and honestly, I would be happy to wear these as a gamer all the time. White's a little much for me, but I would probably still do it just because the specs on them are so good, and that flex cuff is really nice as well. So really interesting gloves, really solid gloves. So make sure you definitely check out that link in the description. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful. Remember to like this video, subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Links are in the description. If you want to support the channel and you're buying hockey equipment anyways, check out the link in the description to Just Hockey. Clicking that link and making a purchase gives me a kickback to help support the channel so I can keep making more content and doing more reviews. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel and not buying anything hockey related, you could click the link in the description to buy me a coffee and Patreon. Everything through any of those links always comes back into the channel so I can keep making more content and doing more videos. Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.